Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate, with host Glenn Sutherland.
The episode you're about to listen to is with Quentin D'Souza, who is from Durham REI. If you're interested to come see me speak on September 18th in Ajax, Ontario, at the Crothers Creek Golf and Country Club, we'd love to see you there. Without further ado, here's the episode. Thanks, guys. Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Quentin D'Souza. Actually, I know lots about Quentin, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Quentin D'Souza. I used to be a teacher. I left teaching in 2014 after about 19 years of teaching, a master's degree, had my principal qualification, and was kind of going down that path. And I had started investing in real estate. I've been investing for about 15 years now. And, the last couple of years of my teaching career as a consultant, I could have left teaching, but I was kind of being conservative and, testing the waters, making sure that I had enough money. And then I decided to leave in 2014, flipped a dozen homes in a year, basically used the same strategy I've been using for the last 10 years, but instead of holding it, I was selling them. I did really well with that, but if I held them, instead of flipping them, I probably would have made it another $1 million. So, it's just the way it is, right? I'm expanding my reach and investing in the U.S. now, into Florida. And, I'm just working hard, continue to build my portfolio in Ontario, closed on a 12-unit building, I've done 3 duplex conversions this year. I've got another one closing on Friday, and I'm working on the due diligence on a 9-unit building right now.
Wow, that's awesome. That's quite the story. So, totally off topic, but anyone who's done the flipping always says, if I would have held them, I would have had so much money. But because I've let go of a lot of my properties, would you not say that though that you use that money from the flipping for, would you actually, because for me personally, whenever I, sell a property, I use that and I buy more properties. I can, because you've turned one property into 3 or 5 or whatever. I don't know. Do you think you kind of did need to sell those properties in order to continue to grow the way you did?
Well, the way that I would evaluate something would be on the return on equity. And I've used this calculation before at Durham REI, right? And basically it's a way to see what your yield is on the equity. Now, if you were to look at the flip projects that I do are more like starter home flips, or I was adding basement suites and then selling them. Yep. And then I was pulling out, if I would have held them, I would have been able to pull out my money and still held on to the project for a majority of them. Yeah. And so what would have made more sense would have been to hold on to all of them, and then perhaps sell them over time, or sell off some of the ones that I had from before that had a lower yield on the equity. Whatever it is, like, that's hindsight, right?
No.
Now I look at some of that, like, the thing is that with real estate, you can't eat equity, and you don't actually realize a profit until you sell. Right. And not everybody realizes that, it's great to have a big net worth and, you got a lot of, funds behind you. But, if you can't buy your next meal, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. So that's why, I always say, to have both. You have equity, so you buy for cash flow and you buy for appreciation. And I'm doing the same thing in the U.S., right? Buying for cash flow, but also in markets that I believe have the fundamentals that help me to appreciate, or that they will appreciate.
Yeah. So I know I believe it's Tampa Bay you're buying in?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm in the Tampa Bay area. I have looked at a lot of different areas.
Yep.
I know we connected before, and I
Oh,
looked
yeah.
at, I was looking at a whole bunch of different areas. I focused on Tampa because I really like the economic fundamentals of the area. The amount of the population that is growing down there, it's huge, right? You're having like 300,000 people in the last year heading down there. That's huge, right?
Oh, yeah.
To Florida, not to Tampa, but
Yeah.
right. But and you get the snowbirds. It's a low tax state. You've got diversity of jobs. The reason why I went with Tampa instead of Orlando was because of the hurricanes, and they tend to hit the East Coast rather than the West Coast of Florida. The type of job diversity that's there, employment. Just they had a lot of the fundamentals that I was looking for, and I'm looking for yield on my money too, right? So I want to ensure that I get the yield that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And, although, the 1% rule is really hard to find in Ontario, right? You have to make it. You can't really, it's not something that you can just pick and choose from. In, Florida and Tampa, you're more likely to be able to find something where the rule is basically like you buy a house for $100,000 and it rents for $1,000 a month, right? So you get that yield over 12, over the 12 months.
You mentioned the low taxes of Florida. Does that actually apply to us at all? Like, as a real estate investor from Canada, do you realize any? Will we actually get the low tax thing, or do we still pay the same tax no matter what state we're in? I don't know, maybe I should ask the CPA. I'm not sure. I was just always curious about that.
No, so the low tax thing is more for the Americans and the reason why they want to move down to Florida, right? Because if you're in a high tax state like New York or let's say Michigan or something like that,
California,
where you have a lot, like a high state tax.
Yeah.
If you're retired, you might want to shift down to a lower tax state or a no tax state to be able to help you to afford living. Yep. And with the amount of baby boomers that are out there, and if you just look at even Canadians, like where do you want to go in the winter? Not everybody wants to stick around. So
right? No, and for Florida, because I was just listening to this thing, and it came up as the number one highest influx of Americans are for when they're moving from state to state. They were showing the states that are going down, the states that are going up, and Florida was actually number one that the most people were moving into. I think it was Florida, and Texas was high, and Arizona was high. But it was like Florida was the Trimecca where it had a lot of the other things that some of the other states didn't have, and so it's very exciting to move to invest in Florida. And I've actually really been really, really close. I'm actually really close on a South Carolina deal right now, or no, North Carolina, but Florida is it's you know what, I'll end up getting there. I'll be there eventually. It's very exciting, and it's warm.
Yeah, you can't. I've got a friend of mine, Brian Scrone, who's Jack's Investments out in Jacksonville, and they do like build properties out there, like new build rental properties. He's a really great guy to connect with, but he that's I think somewhere where I might expand to, if I'm going to expand anywhere else. Right now, what I'd like to do is continue to accelerate my purchases. So right now I'm at 3 properties in the U.S. I'd like to scale that up to another 6 or 7 properties. And really the reason for me, because I'm not stopping growing in Canada, but the reason why I'm in the U.S. is maybe different than other people, or maybe it's the same. I'm looking for a hedge against the Canadian economy. I like the allure of having US dollars versus Canadian dollars, especially if I'm going to be going to Florida anyways. And, I'm going to go look at my properties in Tampa. I'm going to have my, hotel covered, my airfare down there covered, and food and, all that. So, I mean, there's those type of benefits. And it's also, you get frustrated with the landlord-tenant board laws in Ontario, right? And there is just, it's a huge difference down in the U.S. When you don't pay, you don't stay, right? It's just different. And so I like the allure of that, but mostly it's being able to access Canadian dollar or U.S. dollars and be able to use that for myself and my family for traveling and also hedge against the Canadian economy. I want to have, I invested in U.S. real estate because I understand real estate, but it was like I was starting again, even though even though I've got, 15 years experience, it doesn't matter. You start again because you're learning, 30-year terms, right? Like, which is different. You're trying to get financing when you don't have a social insurance number or you're trying to get ITINs, EINs, and then trying to build the credit. Like, you're starting again, and it's okay. Like, I have no problems with working hard and getting things done. I never have, it's all about, being persistent and not taking no as the answer, right? Like, I don't know how many times I've run into, like in my projects, doing accessory apartments, building inspectors, you say, oh, no, you can't do that. Oh, no, you can't do it this way. Well, how can I do it? And then you push and you prod and you keep at it, right? You don't accept no as the answer. And because there is a way to do it, and it requires you to push out of your comfort zone and get it done, right? So,
And I think that's the trick too when you're learning anything new, because like whenever I went down to the States, you go to the first bank and they're like, "Can I get a loan?" And they're like, "No." And you go to the second one, they say no, and you're like, "Well, a lot of people are like, well, I guess we can't get loans in the States." You can get loans. You just gotta find the right type of banks, but it's not an easy thing to do, right? And you touched on some of the landlord laws there in the landlord tenant board. Florida is actually, I think, the second best landlord laws in the entire United States. It might be second or third. I know Texas is number one, and I think it's either in Indiana or Florida is number two for the best eviction laws. Like, everything is nice and slick and on your rules, and like you said, you don't pay, you don't stay. It's like right out the right. Like quick, like it's they're not messing around. Like, they can have it from you didn't pay your rent until, in Ontario, you're doing your N4, and then you're wait until the 16th to even start anything, and there you could have them out by the 16th. That's
right. Yeah, it's totally different. And when you describe the process to somebody like a property manager in Florida, they're like, what do you live in, a communist country? Like,
I know.
That's what they say. I'm like, no, wait a minute.
No. It's
no. But like, they just like they just can't understand it because it's like you own the property. What is going on here? But like, this is.
Well, they're used to their thing, but there is like a lot of states that are very similar to Ontario too.
Oh yeah.
You can make it work. Like I still have properties in Ontario as well, and you can make it work anywhere. But if you're going to cross the border, then why not pick something that you like? There's bigger reasons, like because you're going to have to use property management, which we should touch on. Like, how did you start getting your team and stuff? But you're going to have to set this stuff up. You're not going to manage stuff. I guess if you live in Niagara Falls and you're going to Buffalo or something, you could possibly manage it, but I still wouldn't. I'm trying to get to a point where I still manage my stuff in Canada, but I would like to not manage anything.
No, I mean, I look at it as a business, and I try to teach people to create a business in everything they do. But in the U.S., it was really taking trips down there, studying the market, talking to people. I went to real estate events down there. Went to like the Central Florida Real Estate Club. When I was in Cincinnati in my son's baseball tournament just like 3 weeks ago, I was at the Greater Cincinnati Real Estate Investor Association. Like you got to be there and learn and talk to people, right? So that they trust you and you can look in their eye and, say whether you want to work with them or not. And then once you develop that relationship, then you can go back and say, okay, let's see what you can do. And if they don't work, you got to fire them and you got to get down there and hire the right person, it requires some work to do, right? You got to create the systems and processes just like we do for our businesses here, right? If you create the systems and processes and you have other people who help you in your business, I think what ends up happening is when you start off in real estate investing, you get the whole solopreneur type of idea, which is like, I'm the property manager, I'm the renovator, I'm the guys who check out stuff. And that's not how you create a business. You create a business by having people help you to do that. Create a team of people to help you. Have somebody who shows your properties for you. Have somebody who does the repairs for you. And if you're not able to do that in a profitable way, maybe you have to change the market you're in, even if it is in Ontario. Like moving around a little bit. You don't have to buy a condo in downtown Toronto to be an investor. You can, be in Kitchener, you can be in London, you can be in Guelph, and you can get different, cash flow numbers. Like I buy in Ontario, I still buy for cash flow and appreciation, and I don't carry negative cash flow properties, and the people I hang out with, like my friends, they buy for cash flow too, and we hang out and we keep growing. And the key is to hang out with people who are doing the same thing as you, right? If you want to buy in the US, you go and listen to your podcast because you're going to find other people who are doing the same thing, right? And you go hang out with other people. Actually, you're going to be coming to Durham REI in September too.
Yeah, since we went there, let's what is that? I should get this episode out quick just so we actually get some people to know about it. What is it? September 18th?
Yeah, September 18th out in Ajax at the Carruthers Creek Golf and Country Club.
Yeah.
We'll probably have maybe between 130 and 150 people come out, and I'll talk about some of the structures and some of the things that I've been doing and common things, and I think with your expertise and some of the other speakers will. I think people will have a sound kind of foundation to at least go in the right direction, and that's the challenge, isn't it? Not knowing where to start, and and then just finding other people who are doing it, right?
That was the biggest thing whenever I was going to buy my first properties in the States.
And I find a lot of people say they invest in real estate in the US and then it's just like one property, and it's great, but it's not a business for me, right? Like I'm trying to create a business around being in the US and creating that stream of income, that business down there. And so it's different. And I find there's a lot of like, oh yeah, I do this, but really like, it's kind of like, okay, you're part of the, so if you were to look at, 100% of Canadians, maybe only 3% own, rental properties. And of those people who own 3%, like that 3%, 80% of those 3%, they really own maybe 1 to 3 rental properties. That's it. That's all they're ever going to own is that 1 to 3. Right? Yep. And then the last, 20% of that 3%, they're going to own more rental properties than the whole 80% combined. Okay. Yep. And I want to be part of that 20%.
Yep.
that's how I do it. That's how I built my business here, and that's how I'm going to build my business in the U.S. So, and I don't take prisoners. Just got to get out there and get it done. Right.
So when you were going down to the States, how did you meet your team? Was it from going to these meetups, like to find? I don't know what all your team consists of, but I'm guessing you have at least probably a CPA and a property manager, at the very least. Like, did you find those all from meetups, or how did you go about building that?
Well, I talked to my friends, right? I have a lot of friends in real estate, hopefully, right? So, I've been doing this for a long time. So I just started reaching out to people like, hey, do you know anybody in the U.S. that can help me? Do you know anybody who's doing stuff in the U.S.? And I have a friend of mine, Ian Zabo, who was actually down to the U.S. to do a flip show for HGTV, like a pilot or something.
Okay,
and
yeah.
He connected me up to Brian, and Brian connected me up to a guy in Tampa. You know, like it's just the way it works, right? You just, hey, who do you know in, and try to connect the dots. And, you know, it's amazing what your circle of influence can give you, right? Like, you know, there are people that you first of all, you got to ask successful people. You don't ask the people who just have done one or two things, right? You ask the people who have done 50 or 100 things, or like have done it for scale. And then you ask them, like Brian Scrone, and, you know, I forget, he was flipping 100 properties a month or something like that.
Whoa.
Something like super nuts.
Now, that is scaling a company.
Yeah, right. Like it was something crazy like that. I was like, wow. And then, but the thing is, like, he does not know construction. Like, that's not his thing, right? So, but he was really specialized in all the other components of what he was doing in that business. And so, because he has a partner that does something else, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and I know that this guy, he's got to know, you know, people in the U.S. who can help me, and, you know, he connects me up to the people in Tampa, and then, you know, we keep going from there, right? So it's just, and then you meet realtors, property managers. You talk to, like, there's wholesalers down there. Like, the meetups are great for talking to and connecting with people. It's a lot more. There's a lot less realtor focused meetup groups in the U.S. and the organizations down there, I found, are a lot less realtor focused. Yeah. Mortgage broker focused or whatever, like professional focused. They're more actual people who are just investing in real estate. But they're also, what I found is that in Florida, you find that there's a lot of shady people. It's a sunny place, but there are a lot of shady people. So you gotta kind of be careful and do your due diligence with the people that are down there, right? So.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. If people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to find you?
Going out to www.durhamrei.ca or durhamrei.com is the easiest way to kind of connect with me. You can also check out Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and but I'm really not a social media kind of guy. I like to, when I like to be on the stage at Durham REI, do speaking there, and that's about it. I used to travel all over the place and do keynotes everywhere, and I just don't do that anymore. I just like to stay at home, you know, and do that. So www.durhamrei.ca is the best.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, Glenn.
Cool. I'll cut it there.
Keep it up. I love your show, man.